This video follows on from a previous presentation on the Monro Kelly Hypothesis. A good working knowledge of Monro Kelly is essential for understanding raised intracranial pressure dynamics. If you don't already have a good understanding of this subject, I would recommend you watch that video first. I'll leave a link in the description below. The patient. Tim is busy exercising to help us demonstrate an important point. As he makes his body work harder, his cells have to break down more oxygen for energy. The harder Tim works, the quicker his cells will work through the available oxygen. Breaking down all of this O2 into energy will produce ever greater quantities of carbon dioxide, which will be drawn out of the cells and into the blood vessels. The blood vessels interpret this rise in CO2 as a sign that the cells are working harder and dilate in response. These dilated blood vessels are capable of bringing greater quantities of oxygen and nutrients to the tissue to meet the increased demands. CO2 is therefore a potent vasodilator. Blood vessels in the brain are also affected by CO2. In the presence of high levels of carbon dioxide, they dilate, letting more blood into the brain. This increased volume of blood will lead to increased intracranial pressures. Of course, if increased levels of CO2 lead to the dilation of blood vessels, then the opposite must also be true. Blood vessels respond to lower levels of carbon dioxide by constricting. With ventilated patients, we can use this effect to our advantage when attempting to reduce pressures in the brain. Using the ventilator, we can reduce CO2 levels in the bloodstream, promoting vasoconstriction. These constricted blood vessels carry a smaller volume of blood, and ICP is reduced. CO2 management can be a very effective method for controlling raised intracranial pressures, but it's not without its risks. Overworking a patient's lungs with the ventilator in order to drive down CO2 can risk damaging them, potentially seriously. Overconstricting blood vessels is also hazardous. If we reduce CO2 levels too much, then the blood vessels may become too constricted to supply adequate quantities of oxygen and nutrients to the brain, leading to damage. It is of course no good reducing pressures in the brain just to damage it by another means. A balance must be struck between reducing the volume of blood in the brain and allowing a healthy level of circulation to occur. When manipulating CO2 levels for ICP control, it is best to aim for the lower end of the normal range for carbon dioxide. A normal range for CO2 from an arterial blood gas is between 4.5 to 6 kilopascals. Aiming for a CO2 of between 4.5 to 5 kilopascals will help to promote vasoconstriction within the brain without causing unintended consequences. If you found this video useful, please click like below and leave a comment. It helps other people to find the information.